This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fights and William Hill. Delighted to be joined with Dan Rafael on his birthday weekend. How are you, mate? How's things?
Things are good. It's just another birthday. All it means is you're another year older. Maybe another year wiser, though.
100%, definitely another year wiser. And that's what we've came for. We've come for the wise words of you today. After yesterday, we see Oleksandr Usyk stop Daniel Dubois in the 9th round after dropping him in the 8th and then dropped him in the 9th. In your initial thoughts on the fight on the 9 rounds prior to the stoppage?
I thought Oleksandr Usyk fought a brilliant fight. I mean, he won. I gave him 8 of the 9 rounds, or 7 of the 8 completed rounds. I thought he fought a great fight. I mean, yes, of course, we're going to talk about what happened in round 5 with the body shot / low blow. But other than that, maybe you could give Dubois 1 round. I saw one judge gave him 2 rounds. I actually kind of thought that was questionable. Oleksandr Usyk for many years has been perceived and from me and fans and all kinds of people as one of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound. He has that kind of ability, that kind of talent, that kind of skill. He showed it. And I think if you take a look at the best fighters in boxing, most people would say at this moment it's probably Terrence Crawford coming off of the brilliant victory he had against Errol Spence on July 29th. If you don't think it's Terrence Crawford, you probably think it's Naoya Inoue, who had his big win by stoppage over Stephen Fulton a couple of days, 3-4 days before that, moving up from having been undisputed in the bantamweight division to win 2 of the titles in the junior featherweight division. And once you get past those 2 guys, I think a lot of people looked at Oleksandr Usyk as the next best guy in the sport. And I don't think he did anything to say that he's not, one of the elite great fighters in our sport today. He's going to be a Hall of Famer someday. And it was good to see him back in the ring after a year layoff following 2 consecutive victories against Anthony Joshua, taking on a mandatory defense, and hopefully he can get a little bit more busy. But, I thought he looked really good. What can you say? I mean, even with the year layoff, even with a good hard puncher like Daniel Dubois.
I was going to say, is it important now for Usyk to really be kicking on, trying to, be as active as he can? We know the IBF might slap their mandatory on Filip Hrgovic. Is it important for him to sort of be pushing on now? We all want to see undisputed, but the most important thing for him is, activity as well.
Well, I mean, how active he's going to be is going to be in many respects up to what Oleksandr Usyk wants to do. But in terms of he wants to keep all of the belts intact that he has, those 3 sanctioning body titles, the reality is, and we, of course, we as fans, we as press, even people I think within the boxing business largely would like to see Usyk against Tyson Fury to determine the undisputed champion. But the IBF follows their rules. Hrgovic is up next. They sent a letter on August 1st to everybody saying that they are aware of the situation, and they were reiterating the fact that as long as Usyk won and as long as Filip Hrgovic won the fight that he just recently had, which he did win by a knockout, that they were ordered that fight next. And so I expect, frankly, it could be as soon as Monday that the IBF will issue the formal letter saying the 2 sides have X number of weeks or months or whatever to negotiate their agreement. If they don't come to terms, they'll order a purse bid. And I expect that fight, unless there is a step aside deal, and for what it's worth, I mean, anything can change if there's an offer. But I have been in touch on a regular basis about the situation with Keith Connolly, who is the manager for Filip Hrgovic, and he has said flat out, my guy does not want to step aside. He's been waiting. He wants the shot at the world title. And so, I mean, it's always possible they could convince him otherwise. And, money talks, of course, in this business, like any business. But if he really is determined to have that title shot, then the 2 things are going to happen. 1, he'll get the title shot next. Or 2, Oleksandr Usyk will be forced to vacate or be stripped of that belt, and he'll fight somebody for the vacant title. So if Usyk is going to fight another time this year, I expect it would be against Hrgovic in the mandatory, which is not the worst thing in the world, frankly, because Tyson Fury, who is his main target, is not available to fight him this year anyway. So Usyk could theoretically come back in the later part of the fall, have the mandatory against Hrgovic if they can make a deal, or even if it goes to a purse bid. Meanwhile, Fury's taking care of his business with his circus act against Francis Ngannou October 28th. If they both come through those 2 fights, clean and no issues, then there'd be no reason why in their next fight, which would probably be in the first part of 2024, late winter, perhaps the early spring, we would hopefully finally see undisputed between those 2 guys. There's a lot of things that have to happen between now and then, Lewis, but that would seem to be a reasonable plan of action. What can I tell you?
Absolutely. Well, we'll get on to the main talking point in round 5 yesterday. You know, if everyone follows you on Twitter, they know your opinion of it. You're very much of the opinion that you did think it was a low blow. Warren and Don, I'm sure Team Dubois will disagree. So, you know, when you first initially saw it and then after, convinced it was a low blow?
100%. And a part of the reason is because of the reaction from Oleksandr Usyk. Even if you got hit with a legit body shot and you went down, you would never react like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only fighter I can ever remember seeing having that kind of reaction to a legitimate body shot that was not obviously a low, you got to go back, way back. And that was when Roy Jones Jr. knocked out Virgil Hill with a body shot. But that was not because he hit him below the belt. And the reason why Virgil was in such utter agony, it looked kind of the way that Usyk did for a couple seconds there, was because he broke his rib with the punch. And so I felt like the fact that Usyk reacted the way he did, clearly it was low. If you watch the video over again, which I have done, the shot, again, my opinion, was deep below the waistband. It was on the waistband, but it was way, it was the waistband was, pretty tall waistband, if you will. And the waistband is not necessarily the line, because otherwise guys can wear their trunks up to their armpits and claim a low blow. The referee in his pre-fight instructions, like a lot of referees will do when they call the two men to the front and center of the ring, they'll literally touch the spot on the waistband or on their body where they believe the low blow will be called a low blow, and also where it's legal. The referee, Luis Pabon, did not do that in the pre-fight instructions. I don't know what he did in the dressing room before the fight when he was giving the official instructions, but I felt that was without question a low blow. It was well below the belt line from the standpoint of way below on the waistband, number one. And number two, like I said, in terms of the reaction that Usyk had. And number three, all the people that want to say, he knocked him out, it wasn't a low blow, it was a legal punch. I will tell you this: if Pabon had started to count Usyk, and he knew it was a low blow from his own reaction. He knew it was a low blow because of what the referee ruled immediately when he went down on the canvas. But if for some reason Pabon had decided call it a legitimate shot and started the count, I believe that Oleksandr Usyk would have had a lot of different reaction, would have had I don't know if he would have made it, but he certainly would have tried to get up. And you can't say for sure that he wouldn't have gotten up. I mean, the kind of warrior, the kind of fighter, the kind of background that Oleksandr Usyk has, good chance he does make it to his feet before the 10 count. So, to me, I understand where Dubois and Frank are coming from. They wanted to win the fight. That's their only talking point they have, because he got so utterly outclassed by Oleksandr Usyk. So they can hang their hat for the rest of their lives on, a few seconds of what I felt was a low blow. Although granted, a borderline low blow. It wasn't like a horrendously low blow. If you want to talk about horrendous low blows, we can talk about the, F.A. Ajagba fight against Kosabutsky that was in the other event that took place here in the United States on Saturday night. But it was a borderline shot that I felt was low. And, other than that moment, Dubois got his ass kicked big time, got knocked down, as you mentioned, before the knockout, and then got knocked out. And frankly, I thought he submitted in the fight. Yeah. Yes, he got dropped with that nice right hand, but it wasn't a devastating punch, based on devastating punches I have seen. Mm-hmm. And moreover, he got to a knee. He seemed clear-eyed. He was looking right at the referee, watching him count. And he just decided, I'm going to get up a split second after the 10. That means, your heart wasn't really in it. I mean, it may sound nasty to say that or negative to say that, and I have nothing bad to say about Daniel Dubois, the human being, but I felt like, based on what I saw, that he was being worn out, he was being broken down, and he had had enough, and that was the end of the fight. He got beat by the much better man.
Absolutely. We'll get onto the stoppage in a second. I just wanted to say a lot of the claim from Team Dubois and everyone is that Usyk was Usyk does this is that Usyk is always prone to the body, and he was trying to manipulate the referee and controlling the referee with a couple of times where shots were low, and he was sort of pointing to his body, pointing to his sort of the waistline and the belt. What do you make of them claims of sort of Usyk was manipulating the referee, with it being in Poland and a heavy sort of Ukraine favorite?
Well, I think every fighter in any fight, you're going to try to get the ref on your side in some respect. It's not just related to Usyk specifically. You can go through chapter and verse of fighters over the years that will try to, let's say, curry favor, if you will, with the referee. Not anything usual. It's gamesmanship. That's just part of the sport. it's up to the referee to make the determination of what's a low blow, what's a headbutt, what's an elbow, what a foul is, whether it was a real knockdown, whether it was a trip. I mean, that's just par for the course in any boxing match. And, as what's the old saying, as Joe Louis once said, when, he doesn't like it to the body, who do? Nobody really likes it to the body. And anybody that thought that, if it's one thing for Frank Warren and for Dubois to say they spent a lot of time in the training camp focusing on attacking Usyk's body because they felt that was a vulnerability. Maybe it's the only vulnerability that Oleksandr Usyk has, and they still couldn't win the fight. And if you go back and look at the previous 20 boxing matches that Oleksandr Usyk has had in his professional career, I don't ever recall him being knocked down. I don't remember him having trouble taking body punches. So I think it was more wishful thinking than reality. The bottom line is Oleksandr Usyk is a great fighter. He destroyed Daniel Dubois on Saturday. He scored a knockout. He scored 2 knockdowns, and he retains the unified titles. And hopefully, in the near future, we'll see him fight Fury for the undisputed.
Don Charles came out today in an interview, and he was visibly emotional yesterday, visibly very frustrated. And even today came out in an interview, sort of calling Oleksandr Usyk a cheater, or comparing him. I think he said it's nothing different to a drug cheat.
Let me tell you something about Don Charles. He should have done a better job preparing his fighter mentally not to quit in the ring after a knockdown than worrying about Oleksandr Usyk taking a real low blow.
But obviously, I suppose
I'm pretty sure that'll be in your headline for this video.
Yeah. But those sort of claims from Charles, sort of saying, he's sort of talking about Usyk being a man of God and a man that, if he had honor, he would admit that he cheated. How do you even you've sort of responded to the claims there?
I don't take it seriously. Listen, don't get me wrong. And I'm not anti-Charles or anything like that. He's sticking up for his guy. I get that. But it's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
I've watched a replay 1,000 times, and I've talked to lots of boxing people who've been around this sport way longer than I have. Yeah, that was a low blow. And by the way, it's a judgment call from a very experienced referee in Luis Pabon, who, if you take a look at his track record, has, I don't know the exact number, but has done probably hundreds of world championship fights, has been doing boxing matches at the highest level for a long time. You have to make a split-second call. And I look at it like in American football, they have video replay if they're, to determine certain things in a football game.
Yeah.
Or in baseball, if a guy is safe at the base or out or that type of thing. In football, when they go to the video replay, if they can't find definitive evidence to change the call, it's whatever the ruling on the field is that stands. So he called a low blow. You can't find anything 100% that says it wasn't a low blow, and therefore the ruling stands. And the reason probably is because you could see it, and it was deep below the waistband. The official line is the navel. If you took Oleksandr Usyk's trunks off and look where the shot landed, it was below the navel. That's the bottom line. I watched the video that Alexander's cut man, the great Russ Amber, who's been a good friend of mine for almost 25 years, made that exact point. Russ has been around boxing for a long time, has worked the corners of all kinds of great fighters: Usyk, Lomachenko, Roy Jones, Deontay Wilder. We could go on and on. This is a very, very experienced boxing person. Obviously, he wanted his guy to win, but if you watched, he did a little video clip, explained it, and it made perfect sense. It's not about what you see on the video in terms of where the waistband is, below, above. It's where's your navel. The line is the navel. His waistband was slightly higher than the navel, but the punch was in the lower part of the waistband, clearly either on the navel or below the navel. And like I said, it was a close call, but the referee got it right. And also, people have to remember, we're sitting here watching it the film, like we're looking for the Zapruder film with the Kennedy assassination. This man had a split second to make that call, and he got it right.
Yeah, and we'll get into the stoppage now, as you said, and some very good words, and definitely some very good words from Russ there. I saw it myself, seeing him talk. Get into the stoppage. The thing with Dubois is, the narrative, as you said there, you feel like, he made a choice out there. This isn't the only time we've seen these things from Dubois. We've seen even the Lorena fight, took 2 knees against him in the first round. The Joyce fight, and a lot of the narrative there was that, he made a choice in that fight to try and to look for a way out. So now do you feel like, definitely in this fight, after sort of all the 9 rounds, the mental confusion, Daniel sort of, he made a choice in there in the ring?
He did, I think. And that doesn't make him a bad guy. It doesn't make him a bad fighter. Go back for just a minute. I don't give him any grief. I never did at the time, afterwards, now, whatsoever, about what happened with the Joe Joyce fight. He had a serious injury. That's different than maybe being mentally weak or just not wanting to go on, for any fighter. He had a bad injury in the Joe Joyce fight. I'm not critical of that at all. That happens.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't have any quarrel with that. In the Lorena fight, he was fighting a far inferior opponent. He got knocked down. He took 2 more knees. He had a knee injury. To his credit, he got up. A lot of referees might have stopped that fight after that third knockdown, or him taking a knee for the second time after a first knockdown, 3 times total on the canvas in round 1. A lot of refs would have stopped the fight. He did get up. He showed heart to go on with a bum knee, and he did get the stoppage in the 3rd round. So while it was maybe unsettling if you're a Dubois fan to see him get beat up like that in round 1, on the positive side, he was able to rally and persevere and come back and get the knockout. So those kind of like offset each other. I look at it like in the fight against Usyk, he was being broken down physically and mentally. And when he got knocked down with that right hand in the final knockdown, I mean, I wasn't the one getting hit with the punch, so I respect all fighters to take those shots. Yeah. But having watched guys take shots for as long as I have, it did not look like a devastating kind of knockout punch, even in that later stage of the fight. And what gave me pause was because he got to a knee, he seemed clear-eyed, he was looking at the referee who was counting, and at that moment in time, you make a decision: I'm going to get up or I'm not going to get up. He made the decision to not get up in time for the count. So it's a knockout. End of story.
Absolutely. Dan, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to speak to me on Sunday afternoon. I'm sure you're always busy after a big fight like that. As I always let you, do you want to give it a little plug to the newsletter and the podcast, whatever you've got going on? I would always link it, but I'll let you plug it as well.
Oh, I appreciate that. Look, I mean, I wrote my story about the fight on my Substack, danrafael.substack.com. If people go and sign up, they get all the articles blasted right to them. It takes about 2 seconds. It's for free for many people. If you want the extra coverage, it's a few bucks. And I hope you take a look at it and enjoy it.
100%, Dan. Always good catching up with you. I'm sure we'll be catching up soon. And thank you, mate, and all the best, man. I appreciate the time.
You bet, Lewis. Anytime. Thanks.
Man, thanks.